Have you ever looked at a piece of art and thought, I wish I could do that, but I'm just not talented? Yeah, I hear that from people all the time. And I want to talk about why that belief is keeping you from something really, really good. Hi, I'm Lisa Reel. I help beginners and returning creatives, women who secretly wonder if they could ever make real art, prove to themselves that they absolutely can, even if they've spent years convinced that they have no talent. And I can tell you that I'm not talented thought is basically the number one thing that stops people before they ever even pick up a brush. And here's what I want you to know today: talent is not what you think it is. So, we're going to dig deep into where that belief came from, why it's been following you around for decades, and what's actually true about how people learn to make art. Because by the end of this, I think you're going to see yourself and your creative potential a little differently. If you've ever said, I have no talent, I need you to hear this. Talent is not a thing, or at least it's not the thing you think it is. And I know this might sound a little wild right now, but by the end of this video, you're going to see talent completely differently and yourself too. So stay with me. But here's where most people get it wrong, and it actually starts way, way back, like decades back. Now, most of us didn't just wake up one day and decide we weren't creative. Someone told us. Maybe it was a teacher in elementary school who handed your drawing back and said, don't bother. Maybe it was a sibling who said something offhand that was probably meant as a joke, but it wasn't funny. Or maybe it was just a throwaway comment that took 3 seconds for someone to say, and it's been living in your head ever since. And if you're in your 50s or 60s or even older, you've been carrying that story for a long time, a really long time. And I just want to say gently but clearly that story is wrong. So, someone once told me that I couldn't draw a straight line. And spoiler, you don't need to. My favorite kind of art, the wonky kind, can be gloriously messy and imperfect. And that's part of why I love it. But the point is, we all have that negative voice in our head, and it's not the truth. So, if talent isn't the truth, what is? Well, the next part is actually what moves the needle. And here's the core thing I want you to take away from this video. And it's really simple. So, what we call talent is more often than not a skill that someone has been quietly working on, often for a very long time. And art, the real art, the kind you make with your hands and with your heart, it's a skill. And that means it's available to everyone, full stop. Nobody is born knowing how to drive a car. Nobody comes out of the womb knowing to cook a gourmet meal. You learn those things. You practice, you mess up, you figure it out, and eventually it just becomes a thing that you can do. And art is exactly the same deal. I know it sometimes feels like people are just naturally gifted, like they were born holding a paintbrush. But what you see is usually years and years of practice that happen behind the scenes. And you can totally learn this. I've seen it happen over and over again with people just like you, women who said, I'm not creative, I'm not an artist. And then they made something absolutely beautiful because they showed up and tried. And I'm not just saying that to be encouraging. I've got my own proof in my own humble beginnings. So when I was younger, I drew a ton and I even painted a little bit. And maybe I was better than the average person my age, but it was still pretty basic. But after high school, life happened. And before I knew it, decades had gone by with zero creating. And I realized how much I missed it. So I began taking painting lessons. I started with watercolor, then I went to acrylic. But every time I picked up a brush, it seemed like I ruined everything, like every single painting. Nothing turned out like what I envisioned in my head. And this quiet voice started whispering that maybe I'd left it too long, that there was this window for learning and I'd let it close. My early work was I mean, there was lots of muddy brown water because apparently my solution to make colors was to mix them all together, which, for the record, always ends in swamp. Things were messy, they weren't looking nice or orderly or realistic, which is kind of what I was going for. It wasn't my finest era, but I kept going anyways. Then one day, something clicked, just one thing. And I realized it didn't matter how messy or how wonky it was. I just started to play. And guess what? It started to work out the way that I wanted it to. That one win made me try the next thing and the next. My paintings were still wonky. They were better though, and I was actually having fun. Now, I'm not some prodigy who was born with a paintbrush in her hand. I was someone who showed up, made a mess, laughed at herself, and figured it out slowly. And that is exactly what I want for you. But here's the part that nobody talks about. The real barrier to making art, it's not what most people think. And hey, if this is resonating with you, I'll be talking about this kind of stuff on this channel all the time. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do and maybe stick around a while. The thing that actually stops most people isn't talent. It's permission. Permission to try, permission to be a beginner, permission to sit down and make a mess and not have it be perfect or even good the first time. And here's the thing. If you're in a season of life where kids are grown, the schedule's opened up a little bit, and maybe you're wondering about what's next for you, this actually might be the perfect time to explore this. You've earned the right to do something just because it brings you joy. So here's a tiny mindset shift that you can use today, like right now. Instead of saying, I'm not talented, try saying, I just haven't learned this yet. And the one word yet changes the whole sentence because it leaves the door open. And that's all we need, that door open just a crack. So if you're still with me, great, because this next part is the real game changer. And it's where we talk about how to start. So how do you actually start? I want to make this as easy as possible for you because I know it can feel overwhelming when you don't know where to begin. On this channel, I share everything about the creative journey, the mindset, the process, the honest, messy reality of making and learning art as a grown adult. So here's what I want you to hear. You do not need a fancy art studio. You do not need expensive paints or professional supplies or a dedicated creative space. Truly, you just need a few basic supplies and permission to begin. That's the whole list. And if you want to be around other people who are doing exactly this, because honestly, that community piece makes such a difference. That's what the Permission to Play Society is all about. It's a creative space for people who are done putting their creativity on hold and they're ready to actually start. And together we learn, share, and cheer each other on. It's the warmest little corner of the internet, and I'm so proud of it. So if today's video helped even just a little bit, crack open the idea that maybe, just maybe, you're not untalented, just untrained, I would love for you to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. I'll be here every week talking about creativity, mindset, and what it takes to actually grow as an artist. Zero talent required, zero art school is necessary, zero perfection is required. It's honest and real conversation about the creative journey. So simply hit that subscribe button down below. It's free, it's easy, and the future you is going to be really glad that you did. Now, before I go, I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments below, what's the one thing that someone told you about your art that stuck with you? It could be something that really hurt, but maybe it's something that surprised you. Maybe it actually helped. So let's talk about it here. So remember, the person who told you that you weren't talented didn't know what they were talking about. And you're here watching this video, which tells me the creative part of you never actually went away. She's been waiting, and it's never too late to let her out. Okay, now go make something messy, and I'll see you in the next video.